Hi, this is Cheryl for Bayer's Pampered Stampers. So here's part 2 of my demo this week. Here I want to show you how to work with the new Swish and Pop die, and particularly to make this really fun rainbow card. Remember from the first video I showed you that you can either use the die in a landscape mode like the rainbow or like this guy here, or you can also use it in portrait mode, and we've got that going on with this one where the bubbles disappear and then reappear as if they're coming from that bubble wand that the little mousie is carrying. So lots of versatility. Also, if you wanted to use this mechanism for a slimline card, that's also very doable, and I'll show you a little bit about how that might work in just a moment here. So a couple of things you need. You're going to need the cardstock. Sorry, I'm going to pull this back up. The cardstock that's going to act as your base. Here I've used a blue color. And here I'm doing the card totally different. So there's my background piece. I'll tell you about the holes in just a moment. Here's the piece that goes over top to hide the inner workings of this. This is 2 3/4 inches. I don't know that it has to be that. That just happens to be what I used for this card. The one that I used before is actually a little lower. It is about 2.5 inches. And I thought maybe that was just a little bit low. So I tried making it a little higher this time. I can trim this off if I need to, so it's not really a big deal. You've got to decide how to get your clouds there. For this one, you can see I cut different layers of clouds. I used a die set from Fawn called Puffy Cloud Borders, and there's 3 different borders that you could cut. So I started out with 5 1.5-inch strips of this background paper. And by the way, this really cool paper, Melissa's had it in before. It's the Speckled Paper. It comes in about 6 different colors. It looks like this on the one side and this on the other. I just love it. Fawn has just told us that they're going to make this a staple in their collection so that it should be available all the time. So fingers and toes crossed, Melissa will keep us stocked up with it because it's just a really fun, plain but not plain background paper. So I did 5.5 this way, 1.5 this way, inch strips, 5 of them, and then use the different borders in this set to cut my cloud layers behind. When I assembled this card, I took my background piece and I put my first 2 card layers on the back here. What you need to understand, and it's not really a problem, it just maybe inhibits the functioning of the Swish and Pop just a little bit, because now I have 2 or 3 different layers of cardstock going on there. And so it raises up the back of the card, easier for my rainbow to catch on it. So in order to fix that problem, instead of using the puffy cloud borders, I used a Fawn stencil called Cloudy Stencil. And if you can see, it's got 4 different sides with different kinds of cloud borders on each side. So you mix these up and match them up. Again, you want to mix them same as you did with the borders. Because if you don't, I mean, clouds just aren't that uniform, is all I can say. So instead of having my layers here built with different pieces of paper, I've stenciled my clouds on, so I still only have one layer here. Nothing really to inhibit my mechanism. And then same thing here. I have 2 or 3 layers of clouds up top and 3 or 4 down below. And so there's enough to give me that look entirely of clouds without having the extra bulk. So whatever method you choose, these are 2 possibilities. A third is Lawn Fawn has a cover plate that is just, I think it's 5 rows of clouds. And so when you look at it, there's clouds, 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 clouds that go through, and they're cut through except for about 1/8 to 1/4 inch at the sides. And so you can slip things in between or what have you. You just cut that out and then cut off the top 2 to put on your background. And then the rest are your piece down below. Hopefully that made sense. But you got to get the clouds somehow. Now if you have cloudy paper, I guess your day is made. The only thing that I want to do to this background is I want to follow the cloud border just a little bit, and I want to trim it to be dimensional with the clouds. It's not a must-have, but again, it's a cute look to add to it. So I'm just doing a quick fussy cut around the top, and I will end up with a more dimensional piece then. And here I got just a little box light, so I want to dip down and try and fix that a little. Now there's my top layering piece. To finish it up, I would probably be smart to run some ink along the edge, whether you use the blending foam tool, or if you use brushes or what have you. I'm just going to set these things aside here, and I'm going to go ahead and just add a little blue to the top, and it's going to look just a little bit more finished. Again, if I wasn't trying to do this so quickly, I might go in and trim it off a little bit because I got some kind of weird lines, but it'll work for demo purposes, okay? So we're good to go with this piece. We're good to go with the back piece. Now in order, and probably I should have done just another layer here at the top, just so that everything's covered there. I'm not liking that part there, but it's all good. We're going to make it work again for demo purposes, because most of that will be covered over the rainbow and clouds and stuff. Here are the pieces from the Swish and Pop set. This is the main arm that causes whatever it is to move across your card. That part is cut out of acetate, and make sure you get the good heavyweight stuff. Melissa has got some in the shop. It's extra thick. I'm going to try and show you this. I don't know how well it comes across on camera. It actually comes with a film on both sides of it, so you can kind of see how cloudy this is versus the clear piece that I have here that you just see right through. You want to take the cloudy film off both sides before you start cutting. This is extra thick, and so it might give you a little bit of a hard time cutting. Really not a problem. I ran it back and forth 2 or 3 times through the machine, and if it wasn't fully cut out after that, I just grabbed my scissors, and you don't really need to cut, you just kind of need to run it along that die cut edge, and it will separate it from the piece. So good, strong acetate. This is the key to making this work. The normal acetate we use is not up to the task because it has to be fairly strong to support these pieces that are go flying across the card. You have to have that extra strength. So you can see my acetates here. That's what you need to do. You also need a pull mechanism. And here's one that I cut out of blue. There's the die for it. It is the piece that goes over at the side that you pull to make the action happen. There's also a little cover piece that you cut, and this just folds over the end of your tab after you've trimmed it off, and we'll talk about when that happens, and signals the user that it's time to do something. You got to pull this or whatever. What color you use for these things doesn't really matter. Just keep in mind the theme of your card. You don't want it to stick out like a sore thumb. So I usually cut the topper piece, the one with the arrow, out of something that matches the frame around the card or the edge of the card or whatever. Here we go. Here's my rainbow card. So you can see I've used that splatter cardstock there for that. My piece beneath it is the same blue as I used for the back. Again, use what you want. Just bear in mind that it shows to a certain extent. Maybe you don't want to call so much attention to it. This one was cut out of plain white. I think I would have chosen something different because I don't like that stark contrast. But, you know, do what you think makes most sense for the card. So there's three of the pieces that you use for the Swish and Pop. These are the three that you cut initially. The other two pieces are guide pieces. And let's look at this one first, the L-shaped one. This is the one that's going to cut your holes. So, pardon me as I reach for my cloudy paper here. And my holes are already cut, but I'm still going to show you on this how to line it up. This is the minimum height from the bottom that you can have for setting up your mechanism. On the other side, there's 4 holes. You position it in a hole depending on where you want the action to be going on within your card. So the normal positioning for this is going to be up against the side of the card, just like that, extending straight across, and it should extend straight. Use the markings on your glass mat or whatever surface you have. Use your T-ruler, whatever you have to help you keep it straight. But once you get it straight, you're going to use some low-tack adhesive, hold it in place, run it through the die cutting machine, and that's going to give you the holes that we'll use for setting up the Swish and Pop pull tab. Now I also did an example of how it looks if you do it portrait. So when it's sitting this way versus this way, I've got the same thing. The minimum distance I have is all the way down here. Oops, and I'm off screen. All the way down there. Again, that's the minimum distance. This is a landscape card, so I wanted to pull my mechanism up a little bit. I'm just going to follow that side on up. I'm going to keep everything parallel. And that's where I chose to cut the holes in this. So it's super, super easy to go ahead and do that. If I were working with a slimline card, and so that would generally be these two together, I can sort of start with the hole over here and piggyback along. I've got my minimum distance, again, based on the placement of this arm, and I apologize, I know it's hard to see. I've got such a little screen, and I can continue cutting holes across. I can do that anyway, even if I just wanted a few more in that piece. It's okay. But just keep moving it along. Again, observe your minimum distance, make sure everything's straight, and you'll be fine. So it's a one size fits all for slimline cards. It's all good. And then the other piece we have cuts the notch that's on your final card. For right now, we're just going to set that aside because we don't want to do that right away. But you can see it cuts this really nice stitched notch in there. And so it gives you an indication of where the pull tab is. And it's just super easy to go from there. So let's start to install the Swish and Pop. I've lost my piece here. Here we go. When you're working with the acetate and everything's sticking to it, sorry, you've got this piece, and it's actually pretty long. It goes all the way from down here to up here. So it's going to accommodate a lot of different things, a portrait card, a slimline card, and that sort of thing. But to know that I'm holding it right to make this mechanism work, this piece, this rounded little elbow thing, has to be in my right hand, and the long tail is in my left. That's, excuse me, the proper placement. So to begin to build my Swish and Pop, I'm going to take this long piece, the pull tab. I'm going to put a brad through the hole in its end. And then I need to put it somewhere on this, and I'm going to pick the hole on the farthest end. So nearest my right hand, the hole nearest the curve, however you want to think about it. Sorry, I forgot to make sure my hole was cut all the way through, and I know I have my scissors here in the rubble somewhere. Here we go. So I'm just going to pop out that little hole and make sure this is going to work better for me. Again, if you got a clean cut to the acetate, you're not going to have to worry about this. If you're like me and had to sort of cut it out of the acetate piece, you're going to have to do that. I should tell you the acetate comes 12 by 12. It's actually a Cricut product. I cut mine initially 6 by 6, so I had 4 pieces of it. But after trying this out, I think that it would actually be better to cut it 3 by 6. You need the 6-inch length to get the whole mechanism cut out. But the smaller piece lets you uncover as little as possible. You can use 3 inches in a couple of different uses versus 6 inches. It's going to take you a while, so your acetate might get a little dirty or scratched. So I've got my brad in the arm part, and I'm going to put it through this first hole, maybe. I'm having issues with brads today. I don't quite know why. But here we go. And then I'm going to bend the prongs back. And I've got to start to my Swish and Pop mechanism. I'm going to take another brad. And I'm going to put it through the other hole in the acrylic piece. And so this one will be closest to the long tail. Now this is going to go into my card, and I'm going to show you a couple of different placements because I want you to see how the range of motion changes depending on how you install this. So bear with me here for a minute. So I've got my other brad in, got the prongs bent back, and you can see my mechanism swishes and pops. What you notice is that most of the action is right over on this side of the card. There's some over here, but most of it is right here. So that could be a perfect placement for you, or something else might be preferable. So that's in the first hole, the one closest to this side. I'm going to start with another brad because I'm having trouble if I've opened these up trying to get them closed enough to get it through the hole. This time I'm going to go all the way over to this side. And how do you know which hole you exactly want? Well, you kind of have to look at your card design and see where it makes sense to have your action character or action figure. And so when I'm sweeping this one across, excuse me, you can see that most of the action is over on this side of the card. So that's not quite what I want for my rainbow. My rainbow, I pretty much want right in the center. And so what I'm going to do is just move it over one hole. Whatever you want to call it, the second or the third hole here. It is 1, 2, 3. Oops, sorry. 1, 2, 3 in. And what you'll see is that pretty much gives you a middle placement on the card. And so that's where we're going to leave it for purposes of the rainbow card. Again, what you want may differ depending on where you want these things to place. This guy, I want most of the action like over there in this corner. So I believe this one we put in the very first hole. And you just play with it and figure out what makes sense to you. So I should have a mechanism at this point that's working. You can see I've got extra acetate. It's there. It's a little hard to see. And I've also got a lot of extra on my pull tab. And that's okay for right now as we continue to work on card design. Now for my rainbow card, I need a rainbow. And the one that I suggest that you use is this one in, again, it's a Lawn Fawn die. It's the Shadowbox card rainbow add-on. And it's this piece of rainbow right here that gives the perfect size that will go across the card like you want it to, and then will also sweep back down behind the clouds without any problem. Again, but for the fact I've been bending this 25 different ways and I've got some extra layers in back, I wouldn't have so much issue. So when I cut this out, if I were to cut a rainbow, it's not going to give me all these pretty colors right in the order it's supposed to give me. It's going to give me, for example, if I'm cutting out of the pink right now, it's going to give me 5 pieces of pink in all of the different positions, and 5 pieces of orange, and 5 pieces of yellow, and 5 pieces of green, and 5 pieces of blue. So you have to decide if you want to be kind of traditional and stick with the Roy G. Biv order, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, Or if you want to mix it up a little bit, just because I have so many pieces left, I do want to mix it up a little bit. So here's the one that I did for what we're working on now. And what I did was, instead of starting with the pink, I started with the orange and went down, and pink was my last color. You could reverse order the colors, you could mix them up. However, I still have a lot of pieces over here that are ready to make rainbows. And so it's just a matter of grabbing the big one, grab something that's just a little bit smaller and stack it underneath. And so on down the line. Now you want to build this on a scrap of paper. I built it on a piece of white paper because I need the stability of this hanging together and working as a unit, and it's not going to do that unless I mount it on something. So I just used my glue and glued everything together on a piece of scrap white paper, and then I just took my scissors and cut it out quickly. Very, very easy to do. Not a big deal at all. So when my card is sort of at home position here, sorry, where did I put it? Here we go. You can see I want my rainbow to be about in the center of the card. So the first thing I'm going to do is install that rainbow to my arm in a way that gets me just about center placement on the card. I'm going to use my Tombow tape runner. Oops, I was going to try and use a refill, and those don't work well on their own. Where'd my Tombow go? Sorry, I have too much stuff sitting out here. So I want to use the dot runner and just add a little bit of adhesive here to my acetate arm in the place where I think I want it to be. It doesn't have to be precise at this point. Again, I find it easiest to just sort of bring everything kind of to a normal position where, off camera again, the pull tab seems to be where it belongs, in a neutral spot, just straight across, and the rainbow is coming up kind of in the center. The reason why we use the Tombow is because if that's not exactly the right position, I can pick it up and move it. If I use score tape or glue or something like that, it would be very hard to pick it up. Oops, I might have gotten crazy with my Tombow. But there you have it. My rainbow swishing through. I'm going to move this stuff back because I want you to see something here. My rainbow's actually overextending, so it'll go all the way down here, it'll go all the way over here. I really only need it to stop kind of at mid position. And actually I can see I'm a little bit crooked here, so I'm just going to pick this up for a second, and I'm going to replace it a little bit straighter, I think. Now, in order to make sure my rainbow doesn't travel any further that way across the card, I'm going to use a stopper. And for stoppers, we just use these 3D foam squares. The brand I have is from Scrapbook Adhesives. You can use anybody's, but you just grab one of these foams and you're going to set it right in the L of this arm. Let's see if I can show you there. Try and keep it off the mechanism itself. Obviously, I'm still stuck at the top a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my powder tool. I had the worst trouble getting this lid off, sorry. And I'm going to go over the back here and just stop that nonsense. It's going to take care of any sticky that I have. Okay. So now when I come up across to that foam square, oops, it's going to stop. And you can see I'm a little bit long here. I've still got all this excess arm here, so I'm going to cut off about a 1/2 inch above. I'm leaving the 1/2 inch in case I need to further reposition this, but then I'm not going to get so stuck on things. So I fixed the mechanism going across the page. What I haven't fixed is this. That'll go right down off the page. So I want to decide how far I want that to go down and just sort of place and position it there. And I'm going to grab another foam square and I'm going to set it to the left of that arm. And so if you can see now, I've got 2 stoppers and very restricted motion here. So I can't really go too far anymore. It is helpful while you got your powder tool out, by the way. I kind of skate around those foam squares a little bit because sometimes they do have a little adhesive on them on the sides. And so this will prevent it from sticking. I also like to kind of follow the path of the rainbow and put a little powder on, and that will just ease the journey. But again, I want you to see in this card versus the other how easily that pulls through because I'm still only dealing with 1 layer. I made my clouds by using the stencil. Here I have multiple layers. You can see them all sticking out from the side there on both pieces, the back piece and the front piece. And so it gets in the way just a little bit of your mechanism, and you have to just be a little careful with it, but it will function properly. Okay, so we've got our rainbow installed. We now want to just sort of let's cut our notchy piece first. So I want to grab a little bit of low-tack tape, and I don't need a whole lot. I just need to hold this arm in position. I want to slide this over so that I can make sure that my arm is going straight across. You can eyeball it, or you can set it here and just make sure you're right. And then I'm just going to put a little tape to hold it in place. Now what I want to do, and I'm going to show you from the back side because I've already cut the notch, you're going to set this piece over top. And it looks pretty good. Again, we've still got our clouds to put on that are going to help hide the rainbow here. But I need to cut my notch now. And so what I want to do is take this notch piece, and hopefully you can see this. You have the notch that goes and gets cut here, and then right here there's 2 little arrows or points. Those 2 points help us to center it over the pull tab that we've got here. So once again, what you want to do to keep everything where it belongs and square and everything, you're going to line up this edge with the edge of the cardstock. And you're going to line up those arrows right with the edges of your pull tab. And again, you want to use just a little bit of low-tack tape to hold this in place so that you can go and cut it. Sorry, I need to get straight again. And I like to put pieces both at top and bottom because it just helps you to keep track of things, or at least go on the other side of the tab. But then you would take this to your die cut machine and go ahead and cut that tab. So we'll just pretend like I did that. And voila, here's my piece. And hopefully it fits because I tried to estimate it. It looks pretty good. And you can see how you've got the nice stitched opening around there and everything else. So this part is good to go. What I'm going to do before I take this tacky tape off is to go to the back and just snip off the pull tab because I don't need that anymore. I don't need that extra length. I can also grab my Tombow. Remember, this is my tab cover. And so I'm just going to go ahead and put some tape on both sides of that. Fold it first. Sorry, I should have said that. And then this just cups around that end. Now I can remove my tape. And you can see I've got a really nice finished edge there. For some reason, oh, there we go. I wasn't fully into own position, and so it seemed like it was a little bigger than what's needed. But again, when I cover this over the top, there's not a lot of contrast here. What you will notice is when I pull this tab, it has a tendency to want to go up. So you want to pay attention to that and understand that, you know, it's there for a reason. So just watch the space and don't put too much adhesive over the top. So now it's time to put this over top of here. What you need to do is to use double foam tape. So I'm using these little 1/8" strips from Doris. I'm going to tear off 2 of them. I'm going to remove one side of the adhesive, maybe. And then I'm going to try and just fold them together, which sometimes it works and sometimes it's just a little snotty about that. But you end up with a double high piece of foam. I need that extra space for my mechanism to work properly. And the reason why it's given me a bit of a hard time here is because I still have tape on the other side, the liner tape. And so there you go, a double high piece. Now I can't just go setting it all over the place here because I've got to respect some borders and boundaries. So the first thing that I want to do is figure out where I can put tape that's not going to interrupt things. So I'm okay here at the bottom for a little ways. I'm going to go ahead and snip off a piece of this double strip. Again, remove the liner and place it down here. Now, because when this functions, the tab seems to come up a little bit, you want to leave yourself about 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch there without any adhesive so that it doesn't cause any problems. So I'm just going to put adhesive at the very top of this cloudy background. So those 2 pieces work. I also know that this area is okay, so I'm going to take this remaining piece and I'm going to add it just above those holes to give me a little stability, and it should be fine there. Now again, you're going to look at how far down your rainbow comes and how far over it goes. I need to do another double strip here, so give me a sec while I do that. If you don't have the 1/8 inch strips, by the way, and you're just, for example, dealing with a roll of tape, go ahead and remove the liner on one side and fold it back on itself so that you have the double layer. And then what I would do is cut it in half so that now you have 2 pieces that are of equal size. And then, because it's usually a 1/2 inch wide, you want to cut it in half, cut each of those pieces in half again, and you'll be around to the 1/8 inch level, and it should work very well for you. So it's all doable, regardless of what you have, you can make it work. You just need the thickness. Okay, so here we go. We're pretty well set over on this side right at this minute. I want to put just a little piece up here to secure that. I can't put too much because my mechanism is going to go right beside it and create a problem. So that works out. I need something at the bottom here. I come fairly close with the rainbow, but my stopper is high enough that I can put this strip across the bottom, and I'm not going to interfere with the mechanism. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Again, keeping in mind I already have some there at the bottom, so maybe I don't want to use this entire strip. And actually, before I do that, I already got a piece there, sorry. I may be okay, and I'm just looking at the bottom of this. You can see here I've got a little bit at the edge. I don't want to do that here because I'm coming so close to the edge here. So I've got a little at the top. I'm going to have a little at the bottom here, and it'll be fine. I think I'll put a piece in that corner. On this side, this is where the tab and stuff is. I've got a little bit down here, which I really don't there, so I'll add another little piece there. And I've got the stability piece on the inside that you can kind of see in there. Maybe. It's a science, not an art. Or it's an art, not a science. Sorry, I said that backwards. Just do your best, kind of think it out, what foam is going to get in the way of your mechanism, what's going to work. It'll all be good. And I'm okay with foam on the bottom side of this. I just don't want it on the top, so I'm actually going to place another little piece right next to this one, again leaving this part blank so that the mechanism will work right. Then I'm going to take the rest of the second strip and I'm going to just run it across the bottom, tending to be more toward the notch side than away from it. And so that's pretty much enough adhesive here. Do what you can so that you have support for the pieces. Go ahead and remove the liners and carefully put this piece in place then. We're going to take a look at the placement of the rainbow next and see if that's exactly where we want it. And if it is, we can go ahead and cut off the rest of that acetate. Okay, so I pulled all the pieces off there. I'm going to pull them off the card piece now. Sometimes it just makes sense to put the adhesive on the card piece versus trying to do it otherwise. You just, again, have to use your judgment. Okay, and so there we have it. We've got a rainbow that swishes and pops through the sky. I realize it does stick up and show a little bit, and that's okay, because we have clouds yet that we'll use to hide it. When I look at this, I can see I'm not exactly centered, so what I'm wanting to do is to move the rainbow over just a little bit so that it's more centered when it runs the mechanism. Now it looks like I'm closer to center, but not quite. So I'm going to pull it all the way over to the end. Oops. Can't go that far because now I've got adhesive in the way that's not going to let my rainbow go down where it belongs. You can see I'm running up against that adhesive. So that's why you want to be careful the placement of your adhesive. It will impact the functioning of your card. And again, by using the Tombow runner as opposed to using glue or score tape or anything like that, I am able to make these adjustments without a problem. And at this point, you will see a little bit of your rainbow, and that's okay because we'll fix that in just a moment. So I've got it in the best placement I can right now. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut off the excess of that acetate arm because we don't really want to see that up above. And I should have a mechanism working through really well. Now I want to grab my clouds. I used the Lawn Fawn set Simple Puffy clouds, and I don't know where they went. Here we go. So I will add these in the proper placement to make my rainbow look like it's going back and forth between these clouds. So this one I'll maybe put up high like this, or maybe kind of like this, so that I cover the end and we don't see that. I've got an extra little guy that's going to go in there too. When I pull the tab and my rainbow is supposed to be hidden, then I know I want to place my side cloud like that to hide it out. 3 generally looks good, so if you can keep it to 3, that works well. There's an old Lawn Fawn set. This is one of the first ones they came out with, called Hearts. That's where I got the hearts that I used as the accent pieces here. I used the Happy stamp and die set to create the happy sentiment. You make me happy, both parts of that. So it's really simple to do. The Swish and Pop pull tab is just so easy. And so many possibilities for it. I know you'll enjoy it. Don't forget to have your powder tool out because it will help you if you see things sticking either because of adhesive or because they're getting caught on things like your die cuts here and that sort of thing. The powder tool will help you a lot in getting things straightened out. So that Swish and Pop pull tab, excuse me, again, portrait or landscape is just fine. You pick what you want to do. Do a slimline card with it. You've got it. You can do it. All the same die. Way too much fun. Thanks for watching today. Talk to you soon. Bye.